Hello there, good morning or good afternoon, I suppose, depending on what class period you are in listening to this. Uh, I unfortunately am not here today, to state the obvious. I am going to be out today, tomorrow, and Thursday. You can probably figure out for yourself why. Unfortunately, I was sicker than I first realized. I took a COVID test and double pink lie, and I got positive. To conform with the school's safety guidelines and, of course, to keep everyone else at the school as safe and healthy as possible, I will unfortunately not be able to be in class tomorrow, today, tomorrow, or Thursday. I will be back on Friday. So that's the bad news. The good news, or maybe it's bad news. I think it's bad news. Maybe to you, you're like, hey, cool. We don't have to, look at his ugly face for the, next 3 days. But good news is you still get to hear my handsome voice. In all seriousness, the good news is that you will not, it should not affect our class schedule very much. Today, as part of this video, we will be going over the bell ringer for today, and we will also be taking our second set of notes. These notes will be over map usage, the parts of a map, how to use a map. We're going to use maps a lot in this class, and before we use them, we need to learn how to use them. I should also note I am doing this whole recording in one take. And so if at like the 10 or 15-minute mark I say something really stupid, well, that's just how that goes. And we're just going to roll with it because I'm not going to start over again at that point. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. You should go to Canvas. You should open up the week 3 bell ringers. Now, you should already have this a copy of this document. We made it all the way back last week, back when it was the week 2 bell ringers. We bumped it ahead to the week 3 bell ringers. It should look something like this. We did Chicago again over a week ago at this point. Man, I tell you what, I have no appetite, and that deep dish pizza still looks good. Today, we are doing this city. So, take a moment. This one should be I don't want to say obvious, but it certainly should be one that you can, you know, piece together. Just gonna set a timer here, make sure I don't blather on for too long. All right. So we have a skyline, we have palm trees, we have the Hollywood sign. That should be a tip off. We have a beautiful beach with a mysterious lack of people. And we have what looks like a bunch of tents lined up along a road there. Hmm. All right. If at any point you need to pause this video, please do so. I'm going to continue on here. So, if you said the city of Los Angeles, you are correct. The city of angels, Los Angeles. The state, of course, is California. Metro population. Now, I'm going to come back to this. You should have found something in the ballpark of 18.5 or 18.5 million people. But I'm going to come back to metro population because I think better than pretty much any other city, certainly any other city in the United States, Los Angeles illustrates the important difference between just the city population, the urban population, and a metro population, the metropolitan population. Remember, metro population for short. What that means is it's not just like the downtown city, it's that plus all the other sort of nearby adjacent neighborhoods, suburbs, other smaller cities that are kind of attached and on the fringes of the larger city. And when we look at a map here of LA in a second, you'll really see what I'm talking about with that. So, direction traveled from Monday City. Well, Monday City was Chicago, city of big shoulders. So we're going from the city of big shoulders to the city of angels, Los Angeles, the angels. So let's look at our map here. Here's Chicago, and we travel west, So we're going west. We know that, but we're not going exactly west. As we fly through Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Colorado, maybe Clip, New Mexico, through Arizona, down to Los Angeles. So what direction do we travel there? Well, we know we went west, and we went a little bit south. So you might say we went southwest, but we could be a little more specific than that. If it was just southwest, we probably would have wound up somewhere in Mexico. So to be as specific as possible, let's say we went west southwest, which what that means, remember, is that we went, whoops, this one means we went more west than southwest. So if we had gone south southwest, for example, more south than west, we would have gone more like this and wound up somewhere around New Orleans down here. So west southwest. That's what we want for that. WSW stands for west southwest. Oh my goodness, pardon me. I tried to take my headset off in time to not have you deal with that cough, but hopefully it wasn't too bad. I have a cup of water here next to me, so I'm trying my best. All right, famous local person. There are a million and one answers for this question. Literally any celebrity you've ever seen in a movie would fit here. I'm going to go with one of my personal favorites, Keanu Reeves. You can put any answer you want for that. I'm sure you'll come up with some good ones. So, I mentioned this metro population. Well, let's take a look at the map of LA. Let's zoom in here. Get our zoomies on here. Team Zoomy. Zooming in on LA. Alright, this will really illustrate what I mean when I talk about a metro population. Okay? So if we were just talking about the city of Los Angeles, really, that's just like this right here, which is a big city, but that does not tell the whole story of metropolitan LA, or greater LA is sometimes called. Greater LA is not just this, it's all of this. Pretty much everything you see here from about, oh, here in San Bernardino down south to like San Clemente, up up past Hollywood Hills here, up north up to like the San Fernando Valley. That is metropolitan LA. On this big gray patch of land in Southern California live 18 and a half, give or take, million people, which is more than most states. Los Angeles is a massive city. We can zoom in here. We can see some neighborhoods that you guys have probably heard of. Los Angeles has many famous neighborhoods. Here's Hollywood, right up here, kind of in the northern part of this region of Los Angeles. These are the Hollywood Hills. These hills you see right here. Kind of within the Hollywood Hills, we have the Beverly Hills, where a lot of famous, right here, a lot of very rich and famous people live. If we were able to zoom in a little bit more, we'd probably see some mansions up there. If you are a fan of old school hip hop, you have probably heard of, like, we're talking like Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, NWA, many others. You've probably heard of a neighborhood called Compton. That's where a lot of those guys came from. Inglewood over here, also very proud history of hip hop music. So that's Greater LA. More than just one city. It's many cities that have kind of all just grown together over the decades into what we now refer to as metropolitan LA, or Greater LA. That's about it for the bell ringer, but I do want to make one more final point here about why I chose these pictures. So I decided, the reason I did is I wanted to illustrate sort of the difference in certain people's lived lives in the City of Angels in Los Angeles. So we have Hollywood Hills here. We have downtown LA. We have Venice Beach. These are either the homes or the workplaces or the playgrounds of some of the most rich and wealthy people in the country and in the world, truly. But I also have this is a homeless encampment. Basically, this is a community of homeless people that has formed in one of LA's many neighborhoods. So you really, despite so much wealth existing in this city, you also have the poorest of our citizens living right alongside that. So it kind of makes you think, we have all this wealth, and yet we have people who have next to nothing. Los Angeles has a pretty serious, I hesitate to use the word homeless problem because I hate referring to human beings as problems, but the fact that they are homeless is a problem, so I guess we'll just put it that way. Uh, Best estimates say there's probably about 75,000 homeless people living in Los Angeles. So do the math, that's over 10 times the population of Rensselaer. So take about 12 Rensselaers worth of homeless people, and that's how many homeless people are in LA. Now, why do so many homeless people move to LA? Well, a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is that it's warm. Los Angeles is far enough south, it's nearly tropical. It doesn't really have a winter. Certainly not like we have a winter up here. So it's much easier to survive as a homeless person when you don't have to deal with freezing temperatures for, 3 months out of the year. All right. So that's the bell ringer. Remember, we will do the rest of these as we go throughout the week, and we'll turn them in on Friday. So tomorrow, just as a little bit of a preview, that's what we're looking at tomorrow. All right. So done with the bell ringer. And I was just about to say you could put your iPad away, but you're probably watching this on your iPad, so not going to work. If you do not already have your journal, go ahead and grab that because we're going to go ahead and take our second set of notes. All right. So remember, as you're taking notes in your journal, there is no correct way to take notes. You can do the bubble method with a big bubble or other smaller bubbles branching out. You can do bullet points, which is what I usually do. You can just sort of do little doodles in the margins, which I know some of you like to do. Whatever helps you remember, whatever helps you retain the knowledge. Also, remember, what do I always say? You are creating the tools for your future success. The better the notes you take today are, the more your future self will thank you. And we are 100% taking a quiz on Friday, the day I'm back. Thursday is going to be all review. We have a Kahoot, and we are probably going to do something else for review, but so that's going to be Thursday. Friday, you're going to be able to use this journal and any notes that are in it on the quiz. The quiz is going to be over the 5 fundamentals of geography and the map information that we covered today and tomorrow. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's notes. So, this is available on Canvas. Oh, my Mac is telling me I have low battery. All right, let me plug it in real quick. Apologies. Give me one sec here. Oh, way to be prepared, Mr. Somerville. You'd really like to think that you'd charge your Mac up before you started your video lecture. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said I would do this all in one take. So if something stupid happened like 15 minutes in, we would just have to deal with it. And you know what? That's what we're doing. We're dealing. Oy vey, goodness gracious, apologies for that. We are good to go. Alright, without any further ado, oh, almost good to go. 1 second. Oh my goodness. Okay, for real this time. Let's get going here. I don't want to waste any more of your time than I already have. So, we are going to talk about maps today. We are going to use maps a lot in this class, but we can't use them until we know how to use them. Maps are probably the greatest tool in the geographer's toolkit and the historian's toolkit, and we are all historians in this class. We are all geographers in this class. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, let's zoom in a little bit here. This is all about maps. First things first, your basic map has 5 parts. So this is what you're going to want to write down in your journal, these 5 things. A map has a title. Your title shows what the subject of a map is. Usually it's words at the very top. Your typical map has a compass rose that shows which way is north, south, east, and west. Now, there are many different kinds of compass roses. There are some that are much more complicated. We're going to keep it simple. Never eat soggy waffles, north, south, east, west. Pretty much every compass rose you see in this class is just going to be that. Those 4 cardinal directions. Maybe with, northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest thrown in. Maps have scale, which is a measuring tool that shows the distance between points on the map. And on the next slide, we'll see examples of all 5 of these things. So if you're like, Mr. Somerville, I have no idea what you're talking about, it'll make more sense in about a minute when we go to the next slide. Maps have a key or a legend. It's the same thing. Legend probably is a cooler word, but I generally am going to call it a key just because I think that's more clear and explains what it is. What is a key? It explains what the symbols, this should probably say symbols and colors, on the map represent. Maps often, but not always, have what's called a locator map, which is a smaller map that shows where in the world the area on the map is located. Not all maps have these. Many of the maps that we will use in class do, but many maps that you might see in your day-to-day life will not have these. Alright, so let's see an example of all 5 of our parts of the map here. This is a map out of your textbook, or one of your textbooks. This is what's called a thematic map. Don't worry, we'll talk about what that means. So up here we have the title. First of all, we have the continent of Europe and part of Africa. This is a map. The title is The First Crusade, 1096. That's the year, 1096. So this map is illustrating an event or series of events that happened in Europe about 1,000 years ago in the year 1096, the First Crusade. We have our lovely compass rose right here. And note, north on our compass rose doesn't actually point directly to the top, or at least doesn't point straight towards the top. So you always have to keep an eye on that. North is often just straight up on a map, but not always. And sometimes maps are oriented in very interesting and strange directions. And so you always need to kind of keep an eye on which direction that compass rose is pointing. You might recognize we have some lines of latitude and longitude here. And our compass rose is situated right at an intersection there. Number 3, here's our scale. So here you can see this line here measures out 200 miles. Now normally when you're looking at a physical map, you would have a ruler, and that would help you sort of a ruler and like a pencil, and that would help you kind of suss out exactly how far away maybe 2 cities are from one another. But for this video lecture, let's just sort of estimate, and we can look at this river right here. That's what these lines are, by the way. These are all major rivers of Europe. This is the Elbe River in Germany. And we can kind of see that the Elbe River is roughly, give or take, 200 miles, maybe a little longer. So slightly more than our scale here of 200 miles. So this is our scale. Very useful. Without a scale, we would have no idea how large an area we were looking at. Number 4, this is our key. So we see here orange means Christian lands in 1095, the year 1095. Green means Muslim lands. These are different religions, Christians, Muslims. Muslim lands in 1095. And then these red lines here, we see here, this is the path of the First Crusade. These are the path that the Crusaders took. Now, quick aside here, what is this map even talking about? Well, in 1096, the Pope, the head of the Catholic, and at that time only Christian church in Europe, decided, hey, you know what? I think that we should take back the holy city of Jerusalem. The Muslims have controlled it for the last 320 years or so, and it's a holy city. Jesus lived there for a time, so it should be in Christian hands. The Muslims, which the Muslim faith, this is 1096, the Muslim faith had only really existed since the mid 600s, so it was a younger religion than Christianity, had been spreading like absolute wildfire. It's not on the map here, it started down in Saudi Arabia, the Prophet Muhammad, and his ideas after his death in the late 600s, his ideas spread like absolute wildfire through the Middle East, through northern Africa, and you see here, as we see, our key tells us that green means Muslim-controlled lands. The Muslims controlled lands in mainland Europe, in Spain and Portugal. They pushed up into Europe, and actually, at a time, they had controlled even more lands, even further than this. So it's really quite amazing how quickly that religion spread. Not dissimilar to how quickly Christianity had spread through Europe about 900 years, 800 years prior to this. Last thing to note, and we'll talk more about the Crusades as we go. This was the first Crusade, which was the most successful. There were many Crusades that came after. Most of them failed. Last little bit to note here, though, you see that there are some areas on the map which are neither orange, or at least this particular shade of orange, or green. That's because those areas are neither Christian nor Muslim. So up here, the Baltic states, which is today countries like Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Over here, north of the Black Sea, modern-day Ukraine, up into Russia, Christianity had not spread that far yet. Those would be the people that lived there at this time would be what we today would refer to as pagans. And I guess back then that's also what they called them, pagans. Christianity would eventually spread to those places, but in 1096 it had not quite gotten there yet. So that's our 5 elements of the map. We have, again, the title, we have the compass rose, we have our scale, we have our key. Oh, and I forgot to mention right here, this is our locator map. So we can see it's kind of a world map, and then Europe and North Africa is highlighted red. And that tells us kind of where it is relative to everything else. All right. Now we're going to talk about the 3 different types of maps. So that's the 5 elements of a map, the 5 parts of a map, I should say. Now let's talk about the 3 different types of maps. So we have the 5 things that make up a map. Now let's talk about the 3 types of maps. First type of map, political maps. This is probably the one you've seen the most often. A political map shows major political features of a region, country borders, major cities, and he usually uses different colors to show which countries. Now, I should say it's not just countries. Sometimes it's states, provinces, political divisions. Remember, we talked about formal regions. Often those are what we're talking about here with political maps and what's being divided up. So here's an example of a political map. This is northern South America. So we have the countries of Colombia in red here, Venezuela in yellow, Guyana in sort of this teal, Suriname in purple, and French Guiana in green. So you can see that the borders of each country, each political boundary, are clearly defined. and then the countries themselves are color coded to help differentiate them. You can also see, if we zoom in a little bit, that the major cities like Bogota, the capital of Colombia, Caracas, are little tiny little white stars. That's pretty typical for the capitals. Other major cities are also there. You might also notice that this political map also has what looks like mountains and rivers on it. So this map is kind of doing double duty, but mostly it's a political map. The real focus here is on the different countries. So let's quickly look at our elements of the map. Here's the title: Caribbean South America Political. Okay, there's our title. Next we have what was number two? I always forget what order they go in. Oh, our compass rose. Absolutely. So where's our compass rose on this map? Oh no, this map does not seem to have a compass rose. Well, shame on this map. So that is a unfortunate flaw. That it should really have one. Um, North would be pointing in this general direction. I guess you can kind of tell which direction's north based on the lines of longitude, but it should really have a compass rose. This is taken directly out of your textbook. Shame on your textbook for not including a compass rose. All right, it has all the other ones though. So here's our well, I guess it doesn't really, it does have a key. So different cities. We have national capitals, and other cities. So just the different kinds of dots tells you what kind of cities they represent. Here's our scale, same scale as before, 200 miles. And then it has our locator map right there to tell you where in the world it is. Quick point about a few of these countries. You've probably heard of Colombia and Venezuela. These three countries right here are kind of the hinterlands. It's sort of the forgotten part of South America, if you will. Guyana has like fewer people living it than Indianapolis. Suriname is the same thing. Most of this is jungle. This big country down here, this is Brazil. This is the Amazon River. This is the Amazon jungle. I should also note the borders of this country are drawn pretty distinctly, but they're not really like that in real life. Not all borders are created equal. You know when you pass from, say, the United States into Mexico, usually. You know when you pass from Indiana into Illinois. You know when you pass from White County into Jasper County. A street sign tells you. You could be walking through the jungles of southern Guyana and pass into Brazil and have no idea. Also, I don't know why you would be doing that because you'd literally be walking through the jungle and you'd have to deal with stuff like mosquitoes and jaguars and all sorts of other nasty things. So, probably not a great idea. My point is that even though the border is drawn like this on the map, that's not necessarily a practical thing in real life. Last point on this map, French Guiana here. You see in parentheses here, France. French Guiana is still technically part of the nation of France, much like how Puerto Rico is part of the United States, technically. So the French Empire, so to speak, still extends into South America. French Guiana. All right. So that, just to review, that's a political map. We're talking about political boundaries, country borders, and major cities using different colors to show different countries. Then we have physical maps. They show major physical features of a region. We're typically talking about mountain ranges, rivers, oceans, deserts, lakes, maybe major forests or woodlands, that kind of thing. And then typically the colors on these types of maps are used to represent different elevations of land. So low areas versus higher areas, more highly elevated areas like mountain ranges. And we see a really good example of that here on this next slide. So again, if you have to pause the video, I'm just going to keep going here, but if you want to pause and write this down, please do so. Uh, and remember, this is all available on Canvas as well. So on our left here, we have a physical map of the Indian subcontinent. There's our title, the Indian subcontinent, physical. And you see our key here explains what the different colors mean. So darker green, kind of in this area, is very near sea level. It's very low. Uh, and then quickly, as we get up into the Himalayas here, the tallest mountain range in the world, the colors shift from green to yellow up to dark red. And that represents extreme change in elevation. It goes from the Ganges River plain to the Himalayan mountains. And down here, further south, it gets higher as well. This is called the Deccan Plateau. So you really see the change in elevation in India. I wanted to put this political map of India next to it. These are the various Indian states. India has states, just like the United States does. And I wanted to focus on one in particular, and that is this one right here, Uttar Pradesh. Now, Uttar Pradesh is in this low area right here. This is the river Ganges. It's a holy river of the Hindu religion. It's one of the major rivers of India. And the state of Uttar Pradesh, now this is just one state in the nation of India, has, let's see, I wrote it down here, 240 million people. 240 million people live not in the whole nation of India, that's over a billion, but just in this one state. 240 million people. So if Uttar Pradesh was its own country, it would be like the fifth or sixth most populated country in the world. Just kind of a crazy fact I wanted to share with you guys. Why do so many people live there? Well, we can refer back to our physical map to give us some clues for that. We can see it's very low. It's also very flat, more importantly. Nice flat plains, which are great for building houses, building villages, building towns, building cities. Over the centuries, people settled here because of this river. They were able to grow a lot of food, mostly rice. And so the population of this area has been very high for centuries, probably millennia. It's been one of the most populated parts of the world, and that's never going to change anytime soon. As we go further north in the Himalayas, we have one of the least populated areas of the world. Nobody lives up here because it's just incredibly high mountains. You can't live up there unless you're, like wonderfully adapted to doing so. I guess there are a handful of people that live up here, but not 240 million, which live just a hair's throw south here. Last note I want to make on this, back to the political map here. If you look up at this region right here, which on the physical map is right about here, this is the Kashmir region. And if you see these sort of slanted lines here, that indicates that these are disputed territories. So Pakistan, neighboring country here, is currently fighting India, not fighting, but they are arguing with India over this region here, and China is doing the same with this region here. So Kashmir, definitely a disputed area in today's political climate. All right, how am I doing on time here? Oh, all right. So let's get through this last slide here. All right, our last type of map is thematic maps. Thematic maps. Now we already saw one. This is a thematic map, so let's learn exactly what that means. Oop, too far. A thematic map focuses on one specific topic in a region. That could be something like climate, population, resources, or a whole bunch of other possibilities. It often uses a variety of colors and symbols. Thematic maps are a lot of fun. They're very useful. You can use them for all sorts of different things. So let's look at a few examples now. Here's a map of the whole world. So real quick, we have our title. There's our compass rose. Beautiful. Never eat soggy waffles. We have our key down here, which tells us what the colors correspond to. This map it does. It has a scale right there. So normally a world map, not normally, but often a world map wouldn't have a scale. This one does. So this map is all about population. So we can see the population of the various continents. North America has about 579 million people, mostly in the United States. South America has a little less, 422 million, mostly in like Brazil and Argentina and Venezuela. Europe, 738 million. Africa has the fastest growing population in the world, 1.2 billion. Australia and Oceania, which includes New Zealand and Papua New Guinea and some of these islands over here, has just over 38 million, almost all of whom live along the coast here. Almost nobody lives in the middle of Australia there. I love that they include Antarctica here. It's got apparently 1,106. That's going to be mostly entirely like scientists, maybe the odd tourist. And then Asia. Oh my goodness, Asia is practically a planet unto itself. 4.5 billion people. Now, That is mostly China and India, but Indonesia has like 250 million people too. Japan has a lot of people. Pakistan, Iran, a lot of these countries are very heavily populated. So we look on our key here, and it tells us using this pie chart that Asia has well over half of the world population. Well over half the people on Earth live in this continent right here. Kind of crazy to think about. So that's one example of a thematic map. Here's the last example of a thematic map, and this is a map of the current situation in Ukraine. Now, Russia is invading Ukraine, and so we see in our key here. So here's the title: Areas of Russian Military Control in Ukraine. Here's our inset map that tells us where in the world we're talking about. Here's our scale, and here's our key. So we see the red is areas that Russia controls. The black border area, which is Crimea. Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, 9 years ago, is when this war really started. Uh, Includes purple here. Oh, I guess there's a little bit of purple right there. Held or regained by Ukraine. So they've made some small gains. And then limited Russian military control. You see kind of just along the border there. That's where the fighting is happening. It doesn't include it here, but the article that I pulled this in was talking about a missile strike in the city of Chernihiv, and that's what that symbol there means. So this is just a good example of how a thematic map can be used to really drive home some key information about a major story or an event that's happening in the world today. You're going to see a lot of these if you read news articles online. You'll see a lot of thematic maps being used. All right. So that's it for our notes. Remember, this is all on Canvas. I'm going to go ahead and shut up because I've been talking for about 35 minutes now, including that fun part in the middle where I almost lost power. So what I want you to do for the rest of class, if there's any time left, that is grab a textbook over from the corner of the room. They're the ones that say Eastern World on the cover, and they have a smiling girl's face and the Taj Mahal on the front. Now, some of them are in pretty bad shape, so try to find one that is mostly intact. Uh, and then flip to page 702. And on page 702 and on the pages going forward, you're going to find a number of maps, political and physical maps. Just flip through those, take a look, kind of familiarize yourself with some of the features on those maps. Compare the physical maps to the political ones and try to find examples of where physical features like mountains and rivers, hint, hint, especially rivers, match up with the political boundaries of countries. So take the rest of class to however much time is left after you're done with this movie or this recording to do that. Tomorrow, last thing I'll say, and then I will end this recording. Tomorrow, we are going to learn more about the history of maps and how maps sometimes fool us and how we have to be careful sometimes when we're looking at maps. Thursday, review. Friday, I will be back and quiz. All right. Thank you for listening. Hopefully, this was fairly tolerable. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. I miss you guys, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye bye.